Yes, we know, it was heartbreaking to see our favorite show finally come to an end, and all the characters left an incredible impact on us. But those of us who have been stuck to the fandom ever since the comics are still pretty bummed that some memorable characters were left out. Many of them would have made the drama much stronger. In today's video, let's find out which characters should have been on the show. First off, let's talk about Billy, Rachel, and Susie. So we all read that in the comics, Herschel has 4 more kids, including twins Rachel and Susie, and his youngest son Billy. Don't you think the story would have gone in a slightly darker direction if these characters had been in season 2 on the farm? Not only for Herschel's story, but also for Glenn and the governor. In the comics, all 3 siblings make it to the prison, where Billy becomes a great sharpshooter and encourages his father to keep going when he's feeling down. But it's too bad that their complicated relationship as father and son wasn't shown on screen, especially since Billy killed Charlie, Rudy, and many others before being shot down by the governor's men right in front of his father. Rachel and Susie come back to life after having had their heads cut off in a barber shop. They stalk the land until Glenn takes one of the first big stands and shoots them. We do think that these early character developments could have helped the show much more in the long run. Next up, we've got Julie and Chris. We noticed that maybe Tyrese's character arc would have been much more interesting if he'd tried to protect his daughter, Julie, and her boyfriend Chris, who were both there in the comics but were missing from the show. But instead, he had to go with his sister Sasha, whom we didn't even know existed until we saw her on screen. Even though it's easy to see why they cut the storyline in issue 7, that ends with the young couple making a deal to kill themselves together. The scary twist that follows would have been awesome. They aim guns at each other and Chris shoots too quickly, killing Julie by accident, and when Tyrese is picking up her body, she comes back to life and attacks her father. But this time, Chris shoots her in the head. Now that would have been fun to watch. So it felt like they passed upon another great opportunity to make a character storyline much more interesting. Moving on to Jameson. There's no denying that he would have been a great addition to the all-time best zombie TV show, if only to flesh out the governor's role and change Andrea Grimes' story. In the comics, after Michonne cuts off the governor's arm, eye, nails, and genitals, James helps nurse him back to health. So his presence ultimately would have given the governor a stronger ally, making the fight between him and Rick even more dramatic. It would have also helped Andrea's character by showing her killing James in prison. This was also another chance to give some of the main character stories more depth, but they blew by this one. Now for Douglas Monroe. Don't get us wrong, we're very happy with seeing Deanna Monroe as a more fair-minded replacement. But don't you think that if they'd included former Congressman Douglas Monroe in the show, it would have been way more fun to watch? After his wife died, he felt terrible about how he treated her, which is why he made Rick the leader of the Alexandria Safe Zone. After that, he goes downhill so fast that he kills his best friend, Alexander, making it all the easier for him to trust Rick as the new leader. We strongly feel that his last stand, in which he accidentally shoots Carl in the face, would have been a great way to show how tragic he was, even though he was trying to do the right thing. Not to mention Scavenger Derek. In the comics, Derek was introduced as the cruel leader of the Scavengers and was just as scary as the governor and Negan. The all-time best AMC show had a great chance to show how the character tried to kill Rick after he planned to take over Alexandria, which made Andrea Grimes have to shoot him. But the shots make everyone in DC go to Alexandria. This was one of the biggest storylines of TWD. After Andrea kills Derek in volumes 13 through 22, Rick starts fortifying Alexandria and learns that the group can fight off walkers in much easier ways. But we understand that the long-term story arc would have made the couple's characters much stronger, which is probably why Jadis was put in Derek's place. Let's not forget to talk about Morton Rose. He first appeared in issue 135. He was one of the most dangerous bad guys in Hilltop and added a lot to Rick and Carl's stories. When Carl sees Morton's son hurting another child, he gives him a taste of his own medicine. This then makes Rose want to get even with the guy and put him in jail. In the end, Rick goes all-out Walker and brutally rips his jugular out of his neck, which is described as one of the best comic deaths ever. So simply, the fact that they decide not to include that in the show is just plain crazy. Also showing the Whisperers killing Morton's wife, Tammy, would have done a lot to make us feel sorry for him and even more scared for the hostile survivors. Now this was something we were disappointed in. Coming up, Pete the Pirate. For some reason, AMC completely changed Kirkman's original original story by making Oceanside a community of only women. This meant that we didn't get to see Pirate Pete on the show, even though he's one of Michonne and Ezekiel's best friends and helps them get back together. And although he was Alexandria's ally, he didn't answer Rick's call for soldiers to fight the Whisperers. They tell us that he was in charge of his group in some way. Not just this, but according to him, the end of the world has been great for the fish population, making the seafarer an important part of Grimes' new world. So we definitely feel that he could have been a strong and memorable character, and it's truly a shame that he wasn't in the show. Following that, we've got King William. He was the reluctant leader of the kingdom for a long time, and we really believe that his doubts about his job would have made for much more interesting TV than having Richard and silly Jerry in charge. In the comics, we read how he killed a few Whisperers, but aside from that, he's also torn between helping Rick and being loyal to his men. This makes for more exciting storylines than what we've seen on the show, including his relationship with Maggie. The man was a moral leader who was much different from the show's ruthless leaders. And get this, we found out that the show's creators made the mistake of leaving him out because of the unexpected turn he makes on Zachary when he sides with Rick's militia. Next, we have Sheriff Kapoor. Kapoor, the honest Sheriff of the Commonwealth, is one of the last people to be introduced in the comics. Even though he only had a limited time, having him keep the law in place after Carl killed a walker on private property would have been a great way to end his troubled storyline. And also, having an actor like Kapoor, who's of Indian American descent, would have definitely been appreciated as a good act of showing underrepresented cultures on television. Carl and Sophia worked together in a heartfelt way to protect Andrea in a great story arc, but Sheriff Kapoor hasn't been seen on the show. This is another missed chance to show one of the more likable moral centers in the later seasons of the long-running TV show. And finally, let's talk about Jeffrey Grimes. We were waiting to tell you guys about this one. The biggest mistake the show's makers made was not including Rick's little brother, Jeffrey Grimes. He's mentioned in TWD's main comic series as the person who puts Rick and Lori together, but he isn't actually seen until the short spin-off comic, The Walking Dead: The Alien. And at the time of the zombie outbreak, he's in Barcelona, where he teams up with a woman named Claudia to try to get back to the United States. Then later, even though he technically dies when he saves his beloved Claudia from zombies in Spain before the events of the show, most of us can't understand why there hasn't been a single heartfelt flashback. The guy was one of the only 9 main characters in TWD media to die, and the emotional impact of his death could have been added to make Rick and Lori's story arcs even more moving. But they didn't, and that sucked. That's a wrap for this video. Which character do you think would have really made the show interesting? Do you think they made a mistake by not including them? Let us know in the comments below. Make sure to give this video a thumbs up and subscribe to our channel for more videos like this. Thank you so much for watching. We'll see you in the next one.